What's up, everybody? Frank here, and I told you before that I was working on a comparison video between some of these more popular EDC lights. So we're going to go ahead and start that now. I'll be, incorporating some footage from recording and just a few things that might have happened along the way of me testing these things. So just a little bit of a rundown. I'm going to actually show you the light and then kind of let you know about how long I've been testing it and using it or whatnot. Okay, so we have an arc-feld UV. So the arc-feld UV and the arc-feld laser are going to be almost identical with the exception of that secondary feature, which is going to be the UV light or the laser. In this case, we're using the UV. And I've had this for almost a year, getting close to a year. I'd say 10 months or something like that, on and off. Like, it was my personal carry, it went in a bag, it went in the truck. There's lots of different things I used it for. So we've got that. So that one kind of, anything that we do today is going to be just a video on features when we're just comparing like the rest of them together. So that one's been used for a while, so I do feel like I can give you some good feedback on that. Then we have the arc-feld Ultra. So the arc-feld Ultra, we have this blue. This was a limited edition that I got somewhere around November. Being a distributor, they let us have this primarily because the finish, I think, was they couldn't get the coating to stick as well. So part of the reason I'm going to knock this thing is also is something that was already fixed on the next generation. So I've got plenty of experience with this thing, as well as a few friends that are using the same exact one. So I am able to pull in some of their experience as well. So there's that. So the arc-feld Ultra. Now the arc-feld Ultra and the arc-feld Plus, I think is what it's called, is going to be, is it the Plus? Pro? Plus? I don't even know. But very similar light. The only difference is the housing material is a little bit stronger with the Ultra. I'll get into some of that later. All right. Next up, we have the Streamlight Wedge. The Streamlight Wedge I've been using for the last 2 weeks. So with that being said, I've been running like 3 lights at a time. I know it sounds weird, but I've had like one in my left pocket, one in my right pocket, and anytime I was doing something with a light, I would do it with both. Try one, try the other, see what I like better, see what I didn't like, and then a couple days for each, I put them exclusively like in my bag, my backpack, and anytime I needed a backpack light, I would have used, one of these lights that we're testing here. So, my experience is less extensive with this, but again, was able to use it for everything that I need on a daily basis. And for most of you that know me, know that it's just regular everyday stuff: ball fields, office, shop, home, taking out the trash, looking for something in the truck, that sort of stuff, which I would love to have gotten more footage on. But there's really just no cameras around every time I lose something out in the yard or whatever, So anyway, so that was the Wedge Slim, I believe is what it's called. And then the next up is the Wedge XT. Again, same thing, been using it for just as long as the Wedge Slim. In fact, I would tend to run these opposite of each other. So if I was running a stiletto, I would run this. And if I was running an arc-feld, I'd run the other one, just so that I had brand comparisons and I wasn't running like, 2 Streamlights at the same time. So the Wedge XT, all right, and I got it in a different color just so I can compare. And then the 5th light here is going to be the Surefire Stiletto. Again, Surefire Stiletto, last couple weeks, using it in the same capacity as the Wedge. It was one of the 2 lights that I was carrying, right? So it was either, it was this Stiletto or the Stiletto Pro, which is our 5th and 6th light. And then I would carry a Wedge, whether the XT or the Slim. So I'm going to cut to some features, and then we'll kind of go from there on testing and whatnot, and then I'm going to give you my feedback at the end. All right, so now I have a little bit of my, I've got my information sheet in front of me. I wanted to make it pretty and post it with a video, but I don't have time. So we're just going to kind of go over some of the details here. Let's start in order with the lights that we have. All right, so the first thing is the arc-felled UV. Again, arc-felled UV and arc-felled laser are going to be the same, but those two features are going to be flip-flopped. All right, retail price around $80. $79.99 is what Olight currently has on the site. I've seen them a little cheaper. I've seen them a little bit more, depending on where you're getting them. Okay, so these put out about 1,000 lumens, 1,800 candela, and that throw is going to be about 278 feet. All right. So then the three features that I was kind of looking at were overlapping features, right? Strobe, UV, and laser, and forget about the light, because obviously it's a light, right? So it does strobe, it does UV or laser, depending on which one you get. I don't know why I do. I'm gonna do my hands. So it's gonna strobe, and it's gonna have UV or laser, depending on which model you get. And there are 5 light modes in here. Okay, so you have to think UV and strobe are counting, right? So you got 3 brightness, UV, and strobe. All right. So the charging on this is going to be proprietary. It's going to be Olight's magnetic charger. Pops on the bottom, which does unleash an additional feature, which is can't see it. So it's the magnetic capability of that charging port there too, which is a handy feature, which I've told you I've used several times before when working on the truck, just sticking this thing up. I can put it in the shop. There's a lot of things I use them for, find it handy. All right, and it does have a multi-function clip, right? So you can clip on the pocket, on a hat, something like that. All right. Material is going to be aluminum, and it is an anodized aluminum. I don't want to go into any of pros and cons or anything yet. I'm just going to run through, and then we'll discuss then we'll discuss the pros and cons to each of these lights afterwards. All right. So here we have the ArcFeld Ultra, and remember the ArcFeld Pro is going to be very, very similar, with the exception of body, and I think they put a little bit brighter of an LED in the Ultra. All right. Retail is going to be about $119. All right, so it is not the cheapest light here. It looks like it's about mid tier. There's a mid tier range on this price wise, right? It's putting out about 1,400 lumen, which is the highest lumen of all these lights. Okay, so 1,400 is going to be the highest lumens. All these lights, again, lumens, candela, and throw are going to give you the perceived brightness. So the max lumens 1,400, candela's 2,600 and change with a throw of 337 feet. It does strobe, it does UV, and it does laser all in one with multiple brightnesses. So I think that gives you either 5 or 6 light setting features if you want to count the laser. All right, proprietary Olight mag charger. Right, and it is the OAL aluminum, which they claim is a higher tensile strength aluminum, and it's more durable, and it is an anodized coating. And remember what I said earlier, this model, which was a limited edition model, had I guess it was a bad batch of anodizing, or they couldn't get it to stick on that OAL aluminum as well as they wanted to. So not going to knock it too much, but there are going to be some drawbacks to that. All right, so that's it for this one. All right, so we're going to move on to the Wedge. The Wedge Slim is about $100, 99 bucks, 1,000 lumens output. It has a candela of 3,000, which is actually pretty high, and a throw of 360 feet, also high. That is actually going to be the second highest throw out of all these lights. No strobe, no UV, no laser. Charges with a USB-C, which I love. USB-C right down here at the bottom. Perfect. All right, and it is aluminum, anodized aluminum. All right, on to the next. We have the Wedge, the little baby Wedge. The Wedge here has, the Wedge XT. It comes in at just about 90 bucks with 500 lumens, which is going to be the lowest of all these. 500 lumens, 1900 candela, and a throw of 285 feet, which is not the it's not the lowest, it's the third. So it's dead smack in the middle of all these. All right, no strobe, no UV, no laser, and it has 2 light modes. All right, so the 2 light modes, you're going to have the brightness, low brightness, high bright. That's it. That's 2 modes right there. And another thing I actually did write down, but I forgot to do about the other one, so we'll run through real quick, is the number of activation methods, which I think is kind of important. More importantly is the location of those activation methods. So the Olights are going to have a single activation method, which is just the button that you're going to press up here by the hand, as if you're pointing your remote control for your TV. All right, both of them here. All right, so 1 mode right there. All right, your Streamlight wedge is going to have 1 method here, which is just a toggle switch that you just push. Wedge here has 1 method. The Wedge XT has 1, and that is going to be the push button on the back. All right, you'll tap it to stay on or hold it for momentary. All right, so 1 method. 1 method of activating. All right, so next we're going to have the Surefire Stiletto. The Surefire Stiletto comes in at about $130. Again, cheaper. I've seen them cheaper online. 650 lumens, which is our second lowest. The candela is 1500, which is the lowest of the group, and it also has the lowest throw of 255 feet. It does strobe, but it does not have UV, and it does not have a laser, and it has 4 brightness settings, which is going to include the strobe. So 4 light settings, including the strobe. It charges with a USB Mini. It is the only one that charges with the USB Mini out of this group. I happen to have a bunch for work, so there's always some lying around, but it's not the most common USB charger these days. All right. Number of activation methods are going to be 2. You're going to have a button like your remote, right? And then you're also going to have, the tail cap style button here, thumb activated, tail cap style button. All right. What do we got here? So that's 2. And this one has a polymer housing. If you've already seen the video I've done on this, just kind of like the initial review and whatnot, you know that it was a problem. We're going to go ahead and talk about that a little bit more in depth later when we get to this. Clip, again, I forgot to talk about the wedge. Both wedges have a standard clip, just like the Olights. Actually, not just like the Olights. The Olights have the dual clip. So they're going to have a very standard clip. And then the Surefires are also going to have just a standard clip. All right. Now, here we are with the Stiletto Pro, the Surefire Stiletto Pro. The Stiletto Pro comes in at about $259. I've seen them cheaper. It has 1,000 lumens, which is not the highest. 3-way tie for the second brightest. All right. It does have the highest candela at 5100, which is pretty damn bright. And it does have the highest throw at 465 feet. Pretty dang good. It does strobe. It does not have a UV. It does not have a laser. It has 4 brightness settings, just like the Stiletto, the regular Stiletto, and it has 2 activation methods, just like the regular Stiletto, which is going to be your remote button, and then your tail cap. All right, have a hardened aluminum, so it's a hard coat aluminum, so it is probably going to be the most durable finish out of all of these. It's a mil spec hard coat aluminum, very cool, and it charges with a USB-C, where the same spot where the original Stiletto charged with a USB Mini, this charges with the USB-C. That's the overview on some of these features, with your most expensive being the Stiletto Pro, your least expensive being the ArcFeld UV or laser, and then the other lights are going to range between $90 and 130 retail. I mean, $40 is a pretty big swing. So, you know, but you have two that are under 100, and then you have two that are over 100 in between your high and your low there. So we're going to go ahead and do some brightness testings just in here in the shop, just so you can see firsthand what they look like. And then we'll come back here and give you some final thoughts and, I guess, feedback recommendations. Here is the Arcfeld UV, so it's going to be the same as the UV, you know, laser. All right, so that is all right. All right, we get to the lowest setting. So with the Arcfeld, you have to hold the button in, and by holding the button in, it's going to toggle through your brightness settings. All right, so lowest, it's your second, and you see I'm lighting up that target silhouette there, because that is, you know, how you'd be like identifying, using this to identify. Right, so forgive the mess here in the studio. This is the darkest spot we could find. All right, so now double tap should, no, there you go, that's our strobe. All right, and then the secondary feature here, which is going to be your UV, which is, you know, it's kind of cool. Feels like I don't want to see what the bathroom looks like with this thing. All right, so that is your Arcfeld. We are now going to be using the Arcfeld Ultra. All right, so the Arcfeld Ultra, as you can see, there's actually a lot more spill with this. It floods the area a lot better. Let's see, so let's get to that lowest setting. Remember how these work. We got to cycle through. All right, that's the lowest setting, and compared to that UV version, there is definitely a better flood in this area. You're not going to see that, like, you know, really narrow band, you know, long distance throw that you're going to see with these EDC lights. You're not going to get that circle, but you get a good flood with this. And then that is the third brightness there. All right, lowest setting, mid, super bright. Now I should double tap for your strobe, which is cool. And then dead center, you toggle that switch over, dead center, you're gonna have a laser. All right, so you can see your laser, which that beam is actually super bright. You know, you can't quite see it with the phone here, but that beam, I can see the beam the entire length of the way from here to the wall, which is cool. Double tap that, and you're actually gonna get the beam. You see the laser and the light at the same time. All right, there you go, boom, so kind of cool. And then the last feature here, the UV. That UV is actually also much brighter as well compared to the standard UV version. All right, so it is all in all a more bright, more powerful light. Here we have the Wedge Slim. The Wedge Slim, you're gonna just flick this toggle on, and you're gonna get it's a warmer spectrum light than the Olights. It seems it's a little warmer. Remember, this one's about 1,000 lumens, so you are going to get a lot of output here. It's a good flood. You do actually, so it's more of like you got a longer throw there and some spill instead of just a true flood. So definitely, probably a little bit better of a light, less features. Now I'm going to use their throw mode, which is going to just increase this thing all the way up to that 1,000 lumens, and it just lights everything up. I mean, that is super bright, very capable light. All right, but remember, this only has the two features. You have your, it's off, you're gonna toggle it on, and then you're gonna throw. That's the only thing, right? So on and throw. The camera's not doing a great job of picking it up, but if you can pay attention, probably somewhere, you see my finger, somewhere over here, you're gonna get a little bit better spill once I do the throw. So, and here in person, it is significantly brighter, but you're limited to the two features, all right? Streamlight Wedge XT, all right? So that is the low setting, all right? Now, that is the bright setting. So I think that that is a maximum of somewhere around 500 lumens. Definitely not getting near as much spill. It's a more concentrated beam. It's smaller in the overall flood area is smaller. I don't know a lot about what I'm talking about with lights, by the way, in case you can't tell. All right, so on, just a quick click is going to be as in a tap, right? You're just gonna tap the back and it's gonna be this low light setting, which I do like, okay? I don't wanna give too much opinion on these until later on, but I do like the low light setting on this. It is a perfect, like, just looking for something flashlight, including outside in the yard, right? Now, tap it again, it goes off, double tap, it's gonna be super bright. Now, the other option is to hold. You're gonna hold this light and release and it turns off. Now, if you want that bright setting, you're gonna double tap, hold, and then release and it turns off, right? So there you go. Boom. You know, definitely a cooler spectrum, I believe, than the wedge. However, it is not as, blue white as that as the Olights. All right guys, here we now have the stiletto. This is the basic stiletto version. All right, that is the lowest light setting. Again, I tend to really like the low light settings for not blinding myself in complete darkness. I wish. So on the other side of the shop, we have a white garage door. It would be nice to see what that looks like against the white garage door, because you get a lot of bounce back off the white. All right, so that was a tap. Now I'm going to tap and tap again, and we're going to get to the second brightness setting, and then we're going to tap again, and that's our third brightness setting. What you can see here with the stilettos, it's a little bit harder maybe on the camera, but the pattern of these lights is a lot more pronounced than the other lights. The Olights tend to just kind of flood the area in general. The Surefires tend to have like a beam and a spill. This is like almost just a very wide beam with very little spill on the highest setting, okay? Now, the other feature here is to be able to just click. You can see in the camera, right? Click, oh, click, and release. You're gonna hear me get into this button here shortly. I don't want to do too many opinions yet. And then double tap. Well, let's see. Might be a me thing here. So we're gonna double tap here. Oh, well, it strobed somehow. There it is. Double tap. It's just timing. All right, so that does strobe. All right, a lot of this is user error for me with the stiletto, and we'll touch on that later. All right, guys, here is the final light. We have the Stiletto Pro. That is one. Again, I like the low lights. I've already said this like 3 times now. Now we're gonna go through a little brighter. You can see the pattern on this is a little bit more like the Streamlights, where you have a more of a center focus beam and then spill. This spills a lot more than the basic stiletto version, all right? And on that full 1000 lumen brightness, it is a relatively powerful beam that you can almost see it spotlight. It's very hard on this camera, obviously, but you can see a little bit of the spotlight coming off of this thing, and it floods the area a heck of a lot more than that stiletto, and a slightly cooler light. It's a less warmer tone. All right, now here, if we're going to do the back button, all right, back is going to be in that brightest setting. It's just how it works. The back is always going to be the brightest setting. All right, now double tap and get your strobe feature. All right, so brightest setting directly off the back like this, which I really like, and then boom, good to go. All right, so let's get back to some thoughts and opinions. All right, so now that you've seen some of the functions on these, I want to dive a little bit more into the lights, specifically the brand-related features, because they're going to have, each brand is going to kind of have their own similarities. It is going to be my opinion on whether or not I think the light was worth my money, and if I think it's going to be worth your money, and at least give you a scenario in which each of these lights is maybe better, or why you would want one. All right. So let's go right into the same order that we've been using, and we'll start with Olight. So the first things first with these is Olight's clips are kind of crap, to be honest with you. They bend out a little easy. You kind of hear that like rattle feel. That is not a tight clip that's going to hold on well. In fact, I mean, it feels like it's almost bent out of shape. Now they're replaceable, perfectly fine. It is what it is. All right. They improved it slightly on the Ultra. I say it's a significant improvement compared to what was there before. But I guess no complaints with the clip on the Ultra. So the Arcfeld UV clip sucks. That's going to be the UV, the laser, etc. Right? It sucks. Now the Ultra is much better. So the other thing is Olight's anodized finishes. I don't like them. The colors are cool, but almost every Olight I have scratches up pretty easy. You got it, right? I mean, that was like the first day of having this light. I put it on something magnetic and then bumped it, fell, scratched. So, is what it is. But the color options, they do have the better color options. The Wedge also has a few good color options. But if color is what you're looking for, stick with your Olights, right? You get a little bit more features out of them. In general, the Olight has my least favorite operating mechanism, which is going to be like the toggle switch / button. I wish they had a tail cap button, but that would prevent it. Well, not always, but it could have prevented it from charging, which leads me into the least favorite thing that I like about Olight is their proprietary charging port. Now I have to always carry one of their magnetic chargers with me if I'm running any of these lights. Now, the good thing is most of their lights are going to use the same charger, so if you're an Olight whore, then you'll always have a charger. Perfectly fine. I have tons of USB-Cs and I have some micros. So I'd rather not carry the extra charger. I do carry it because I have random Olight stuff, but I really do think that the charging is my least favorite out of all three of them. All right. So if we then get into the Streamlight, one of the issues I have with the Streamlight is their clip is actually a little too tight. So when I go to put this in my pocket on my jeans, I almost always activate the button by pushing this thing down because I have to really get on it. I really have to get on this thing to really get it there on my jeans, which is like a good and a bad thing. I prefer that the clip be just a little bit easier. It doesn't necessarily make it a stronger clip. It just might mean that the angle is just a little too steep and makes it just a little too hard to get on. So that's my knock on the Streamlight Wedge in general. Now, the Streamlight Wedge Slim, the biggest knock I have on this thing, besides the lack of features, I would actually prefer. It is not my least favorite, is the lack of features. The least favorite is this activation, this toggle. It's annoying. It's stupid. It makes no damn sense to me why it can't just be a button. I think that this wedge might have been an immediate response to come up with something to compete with the Arcfeld. And it's, again, I liked the light itself. The light itself was fine, and you have Streamlight, which is an American company made overseas, but it's an American company, that you're going to get American support. It's nice, right? So I like that. I like that feature. I like the American companies better. And I've always liked Streamlight. The TLR one is one of my favorite lights ever. However, this toggle switch is. I'm trying not to curse because I want this to be complete. I don't want it to get demonetized for anything, but this is an awful, awful, awful operating mechanism here. I don't like it. I think it's stupid, and it pisses me off. All right, so the wedge, much better. That button is much better. I like it. I'm sorry, I keep saying the wedge. The wedge XT. The wedge XT is a much better operating mechanism. However, I wish it also had a button. If it had just a little button, I don't want a damn toggle switch. I don't like the toggle switch. But if it had two buttons, the button on the rear and the button up here, I'd like it a hell of a lot better. It doesn't, but this still is a good light. So less powerful. Find a way. Maybe find a way to put like a little bit more candela in this thing, and you got a much better light all around. Also don't like that it doesn't strobe. So I don't know. So, the arc felds, they are what they are, slightly gimmicky. The Streamlights, I hate this operating system here, and a strobe would have been nice. And then the wedge, I like the operating system a heck of a lot more. It is actually one of my favorites. Maybe a strobe would have been nice. I think that strobe would have put it like over the top compared to some of the other ones. All right, now let's get into stiletto or the Surefire. The clip on the Surefire is by far my favorite. On the standard stiletto and the Stiletto Pro, you do have the same clip. So only difference is the Pro allows you to switch it to mount from this side to this side, which I did. Reason being is I wanted the light in my pocket. It's just kind of like a normal way for me to grab things. I don't like the light shining like back up at my face in case I like bent over and my knee activated it or something like that, right? So I just switched the clip, but you can do it easily. On the standard stiletto, you cannot, so that light head is going to be up. All right, but the clip is by far my favorite out of all of them, and the operating system is by far my favorite out of all of them, which is going to be, again, your tail switch button and a standard button here. You have a program button, which, in short, just programs basically which direction. You want it to start off at full brightness or you want it to start off at the lowest bright setting, and, that's up to you. I tend to like it to start low. This way I'm not pulling it out and then all of a sudden blinding everything, right? So that is by far my favorite button system out of these three lights. Let's go back for a second. The Streamlight charges with USB-C, which is my favorite charging mechanism of the three. This USB Mini is... I almost like it less than the Olight, but I have the USB minis, so I don't complain too much. And the Stiletto Pro fixed that by adding the USB-C, the same operating buttons, and the same tail cap button there, right? So let's get into what I don't like about this Stiletto here is that the body is polymer. All right, so I've dropped this thing and cracked it. I actually have to send it back to Surefire to be replaced, or repaired, I should say. But that is a big problem for me. I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a bit. But you have an aluminum light housing, which is heavy. So if you were to drop it, the first thing it's going to do is gravity's going to take over, and it's going to drop flat down on the light, which I did, and caused no damage to the light whatsoever, which is a phenomenal thing. However, that one drop from knee high, getting out of my truck the other day, shattered the polymer here, which is crap because now this thing is no longer IP rated, right? The second I drop this thing in water, it's gonna get in there and fry everything. So that's not a good thing, right? That's not good. I don't like it. It's a problem. I don't like that at all. So the polymer housing is crap. It's my least favorite housing out of all of these. I wanted to like it because polymer's a good feel. Sure, it'll scratch up and scuff up a little bit, but it won't chip the paint. The new housing on the Surefire Pro is a tremendous enhancement from the polymer. I have not dropped it. I don't really want to toss around a $250 light, but it does have the best feel out of all of them. All right, so let's get right to recommendations. All right, would I recommend? Would I not recommend? Why? All right. The first light I'm going to rule out is going to be the Streamlight wedge, the slim wedge. The operating system is stupid. I hate it. It's almost retarded. I see what they were doing with this, but you are almost, for what this is, you're almost in just the traditional flashlight category, which means go ahead and get just a traditional flashlight that you can throw in your pocket or your bag. It's a little too long. I don't like the operating system. I think it's kind of crap. I mean, it's going to end up in my truck gun bag so that I have something that I can pull out that I can use, and it's a USB-C, so I'll always have a charger for it. That's where it's going to go. But I don't like it. So for the price, for $100, you can spring, an extra $20 to $40 and get a much better light, or you can, go slightly cheaper with the wedge, shave off $10, and I like this better. It's not as bright, and it doesn't have a strobe, but I mean, when apples to apples, this doesn't have a strobe either. So I'd much rather the wedge over the Wedge XT over the Wedge Slim. All right, so this one's completely off the table. I do not recommend that Wedge Slim to anybody. All right. The second one I'm going to rule out right away. It was a tie between the Slim and this is going to be the Stiletto, the Surefire Stiletto, the basic version. I can't vouch for anything that's going to break on impact, and then it is going to greatly diminish the integrity of this light, because you could drop it in the rain or you could drop it in a puddle and it's going to crack and then fry and then you're done. And Surefire might not replace it if it has water damage, right? So the pro to Surefire is this is a U.S.-based company, made in the U.S., and their RMA, their return and warranty products is phenomenal. Relatively fast turnaround. However, they'll tell you that they're servicing products that date back 40-something years, so it's first come, first serve with replacements, and or I should say with warranties, not replacements. And I'm cool with that. But the problem is, once this is repaired and replaced, I don't want to add it back into my daily, because if I drop it again, it'll just break again. Maybe it is better off with somebody who is going to be more gentle, but I mean that's going to rule out most of anything tactical, anything any kind of hard work. It's going to rule this out. The other thing I don't like about this is that tail cap button is a little awkward. If you don't get it perfect, you'll get a little bit of a flicker. You'll get it to kind of pop off, which I don't like. And for whatever reason, maybe it's because I've got a bad thumb on my right side, but I have a very hard time keeping it in with my right thumb. I just never get it on the right spot. It kind of rolls off. So, the Stiletto, in my opinion, is out. At $130, you could spend less money and get a better functioning light. Again, that Wedge XT being $90, which can save you $40, right? You can take $40 off and get this thing, and I like this thing better than the basic Stiletto. All right, so that one's out of the picture. Let's get to the Arcfeld lights. You either love them or you hate them. I mean, I'm a little bit kind of mid on them, but it is not a tactical light. The body scratches up pretty easily. I don't see it being super durable. They're a little gimmicky, but they work. They function. I use them all the time. The magnetic feature is awesome. I just think that at $80, I would rather have the Wedge XT and have just the light Again, at $80, there's probably better just lights in general. If you are doing something that's going to require you to use a laser pointer, like if you're presenting a lot, sure, I get it. If using a UV light is very important to you and you're going to use that a lot more, then sure, I get it. I'm not ruling it out as saying don't get it. I'm saying that I think that you can spend a little bit more and get the Ultra, which is a better light, and have all three features. So your light, your laser, your UV, and a more durable body in that that OAL aluminum that they have. In their OD green finish and some of their newer finishes are not going to scratch up as easy as this. I told you that I kind of knocked them on this being, this getting scratched up. But they even said up front that this was a coating that they didn't like because it didn't pass their, stringent requirements on being a durable coating that didn't chip or peel off. And it's cool. I appreciate that. I got it on a great sale for that reason. But nothing changes with the light itself. It's just the finish. So I'm not going to knock the finish on this and assume that the OAL coating on the OD green one that they have is, or olive, that olive one they have is better. I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I personally don't need a laser, and I really don't need a UV. So at $119, I'm not too interested. I keep going back to the Wedge because it's a great value. The Wedge XT being $30 cheaper is probably a better option for me. All right. I don't love the Olight operating system here. I would prefer it to be a little bit more boop. And then, so I'm going to say maybe pass on the UV and laser options. And if you're going to go with Olight, it's bright. It is actually the brightest lumen one here. I'm going to go, let's say, stick with the Ultra. The Ultra there is good to go. All right. So my two favorites, and it is in a specific order. My two favorites, the first favorite of mine is that Stiletto Pro. The problem is the price. At $259, you're getting into that buy once, cry once, USA warranty, I have to have it product. So if the money isn't an issue and you have the ability to get it and you might just cry a couple days, then I think that this is a great option. They fixed a lot of things that were an issue with the original Stiletto. They made it brighter for one. For two, they gave you that more durable body, which is tremendous. And then your clicky tail cap thing is, I'm operating it with just like part of my thumb and it stays on. Much better, more responsive button. I love it. USB-C, it's a great addition. I mean, look, if you have the money, and look, we sell all of these things, and I can give you guys sales and discounts, but if you have the money and it's not going to kill you to do so, this is where it's at. I like it, hands down. But for the price, this is probably the best light. At, $90, and it's just a light. That's a lot of money for just a flashlight. I get it. But at $90, also USB-C, a better, more durable anodized coating than the Olights. Your clicky button, your clicky tail cap button here, good to go. Simple. If you want a minimalist design, a minimalist light, this is where to go. I like it. It's small footprint, very functional. Throw it in a bag, whatever the case is, right? There's plenty of scenarios in which you can use this. I highly recommend it, especially running off USB-C. So these are my two picks here, which is going to be the Stiletto and the Stiletto Pro and the Wedge XT. So again, I'm not going to recommend that Wedge. I think it's a stupid light. It bothers me. The Stiletto is poor construction, and the arc-filled laser / UV, you might as well get the Wedge XT. So that's how I rule those things out, right? So the brightest light is going to be that arc-filled Ultra, followed by the Stiletto Pro. The most rugged is going to be the Stiletto Pro, probably followed by yeah, maybe that arc feld and the OAL with the OD green, not this blue version I have. And then you're going to have your wedge products there. All right. The most features are going to be your arc feld ultra. So you might think I'm knocking the arc feld. I'm not. I just don't need the extra features. And it's more of like a fancy businessman light than what I need, right? I need a little bit more durable, a little bit more rugged. I can drop it, I can test it, I can bang it, leave it out in the heat, and be fine because I know I have Surefire and Streamlight backing me up. All right. The best clips go to the stilettos. The best minimalist light is going to be that Wedge XT. And the best charging system out of all of these is going to be the USB-Cs. So it's going to be your Streamlight and your Stiletto Pro. All right. So my ranking is going to be that Stiletto Pro first and foremost, made in the USA, durable. We discussed it. It's got everything you need. Followed by the Wedge XT because it is a great minimalist light. In fact, I'm going to use both of them. This stiletto is probably going to be in my pocket at all times. And if this thing doesn't stick in my pocket, it is going to 100% end up in my EDC bag because it's better than the alternatives that I would have in there. Footprint-wise, function-wise, it's there, right? And then, if you want a little bit more of like a fancier aesthetic look, then, stick to your Ultra. So again, these three I do recommend. However, I'm going to strong push for that Stiletto Pro. I get it, guys. Financially, it's a lot of money. So, get the Wedge XT because I love this thing. It comes in black and it comes in this coyote. And I think it also comes in a silver-ish color. Really cool. If you guys want, let me know if you want me to stock these things. Otherwise, you can just get them right from the site. But that's it. I hope you guys appreciate it. I know it's a little bit long, and I've got this stupid light flickering. You can kind of see it in the background. I don't know what that's all about. But, yeah, let me know what you think. And I know it's kind of long-winded and kind of looking down at this computer the whole time, and I'm freaking tired. But spent a lot of time and a lot of money on this one, and all of these are available, these ones that I actually tested. So if you want one of these that I've actually been tested, hit me up. I'll give you guys a great deal on it. All right. Don't forget, like and subscribe. It helps. It goes a long way. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram. We're always giving stuff away, or we're trying to give stuff away, but you people never follow the rules. And that's it, guys. All right. See you.